This video does not contain spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine, and I please ask that nobody post any spoilers in the comments section down below for the sake of everybody's movie-going experience. So despite having a 19-year run of films, the Fox X-Men are heavily underrepresented in Marvel Legends. So let's recap what we do have and what we're missing.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and today's video is going to be similar to a video I'd done before. I did this video about every X-Men team in Marvel Legends, how complete are they, what's missing, that sort of thing. But let's talk about the Fox X-Men movies. With Deadpool and Wolverine coming up, I thought it was a good time to talk about this. Despite there being a lot of X-Men movies from Fox, their representation in Marvel Legends is insanely small. This isn't all of them, but it's dang near close. We're going to go through movie by movie and see what figures we have and when they were released, because I feel like for as well known as these movies are, and for how much Disney is banking on the marketing and the nostalgia for them for their newest movie, I'm kind of wondering why we don't have more merchandise. So let's do a movie-by-movie breakdown and talk about who we have and who we don't. And if you like this sort of video, please hit the like button and subscribe and the notification bell if you haven't already, so that way this video gets out to more people and you can also keep up with future videos. Because I want to do sort of more of these how many are we missing type videos in the future. But let's get on to the first X-Men film and see how many figures we have. So X-Men from 2000, the film that kicked off the entire Fox X-Men movie series, as well as an iconic piece of superhero media that has contributed to one of the second booms of the superhero genre. First boom being '89 Batman, ending sort of with Batman and Robin, and then the second boom kind of picking up with X-Men and Spider-Man pretty much back to back. Now the thing is that this movie is very iconic, and while not a perfect adaptation by any means, a lot of the things in this movie have become icons. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart as Magneto and Xavier. So let's see how many figures we have in Marvel Legends. That's it? Okay, so let's go through this. I don't have the Wolverine with the jacket. I didn't like the way the heads looked on it and ultimately decided I didn't need it if there wasn't going to be too much else. We got Mystique. Mystique is one of the icons of the series, but, you know, in terms of the original films, I don't think Mystique was as major of a character as she was in the later films. We have Professor X with this very inaccurate chair. He had the fancy, like, X wheels chair. This is just a standard wheelchair because they would use this later on for another release of Professor Xavier. And he was in a two-pack with Magneto. And the reason why there's two heads floating here is we got these really great Ian McKellen Magneto head sculpts, both a masked and an unmasked. Now the issue is these came with the figure of the Michael Fassbender Magneto from Days of Future Past, which is not a costume that Ian McKellen wore. So we just have the heads, but not the matching body. So that's it. That's all Marvel Legends has provided us from the first X-Men movie, is 3 figures and some heads, and the chair isn't even accurate on Xavier. This is a bummer, because I feel like we could have gotten a lot more. In fact, back when the movie first came out, Toy Biz did release a line of figures, which include Cyclops, Jean Grey, Logan with a jacket, Magneto, Mystique, Professor X, Rogue, Sabretooth, Storm, Toad, and Wolverine. And it was, you know, they had multiple looks for the characters. They pretty much covered everything. And those are 6-inch figures, but they scale a little too small for Marvel Legends, and they're very action feature based, so they don't really fit into Marvel Legends. But there are figures at least out there for this movie. I had a bunch of those as a kid. I still have them somewhere. I didn't feel like digging them all out for this video. But the problem we have is that we're sitting at basically only a couple figures here. And ultimately, Mystique and Charles, you know, Mystique, sure, but like, you know, Charles here isn't even fully accurate because he's only got that one chair option. It's a real bummer that the first movie doesn't have more representation, because when they did these figures for Marvel Legends, it was part of the X-Men 20th anniversary line, which was to represent the 20th anniversary of the first movie. And then most of the line was comic figures, so we didn't get that many characters. And that, I think, is a bummer. But hey, you know, X-Men, for all of its faults, is not the most loved of the movies. X2, however, is regarded as the best X-Men movie by many. So let's take a look at X2. So X2, X-Men United, the sequel, widely regarded as one of the best. It's got Wolverine backstory stuff, it's got Nightcrawler, it's got Jean Grey Phoenix teases. There's a lot of good stuff in this film, widely regarded as a great one. So, of course, you think that you would have the most toy representation. Well, let's see what we got. Okay, so we got 50-50. This Wolverine in the tank top is what I consider an X2 version, because in X1, he didn't really wear just the tank top. He was either shirtless or in the jacket. He didn't really have tank top. Mystique, Professor X, and Magneto's heads all carry forward from the other movies since their looks didn't change that much, but again, we're having to cheat because that Professor X wheelchair isn't accurate. Now, during the X-Men Origins Wolverine toy line, there was a series of 2-packs. There was two 2-packs. One featured Cyclops in his X2 uniform, and the other featured Wolverine in his X2 uniform. Those were released around 2009-ish, so they don't really gel with modern Marvel Legends because they're on the old like Toy Biz style joints, but those figures do exist. So all in all, for X2, one of the most iconic films, we have 2 figures and some heads carried forward, 1 figure that's more specific to this movie, and then 2 figures that are for some older 2-packs, one of which being Cyclops, the character that's barely in the movie, and one of which Wolverine duplicating with the tank top. So we're missing Magneto, Storm, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Pyro, Iceman, and Deathstrike in modern Marvel Legends to go with everybody else. Now, Toy Biz had a line for X2 that contained Cyclops, Logan in a jacket, Nightcrawler, Wolverine that was superposable, Cyclops in a trench coat, Iceman, Logan in a tank top, Magneto, and a Claw Strike Wolverine. But you may notice the lack of any women in that line. For some reason, there wasn't any, and that was also leaving out a bunch of the important characters. So X2, despite being so loved, is completely lowballed in the modern Marvel Legends department. If you include all the figures of the past, you're still missing characters like Deathstrike. So, in Jean Grey and Storm in their X2 uniforms, it's just kind of a mess. And the fact is, of the modern Legends style, this Wolverine is the only figure that's X2 specific. It's a whole thing, but it's kind of a bummer because I think this movie deserves better. Alright, X-Men The Last Stand, not seen as a well-beloved movie. It has some great moments in it. There's some really good dialogue from Magneto that deserves to be in a better movie than this. But this movie is not well regarded by a lot of people, and it is, of course, the end of the original trilogy. So let's see what we got figures-wise. Well, hey, pretty good, actually, considering how the other movies have gone so far. So here we have kind of an interesting mix. All of these are carried forward. I will note, Mystique's haircut does not match X3. It matches X1 and X2, so, you know, again, if we're counting Charles's chair, we're going to count Mystique's, even though her hair is different. These figures carry forward. There's probably a reason why Hasbro did these for the anniversary, because these cover multiple movies, because it's reused looks, essentially. With the X3 figures that Hasbro released back in 2007, however, this is kind of interesting. Hasbro started their Marvel Legends line in 2007, and between 2007 and 2009, they actually inserted some X3 figures into the line. So we had Jean Grey and Juggernaut in the Blob wave, we had Beast in the Annihilus wave, and we had Colossus in the Brood Queen wave. And Beast and Colossus would get re-released in those 2-packs with the X2 figures that I mentioned prior, so they're actually a little bit more available than some of the others. Juggernaut did come with his helmet, by the way. I just can't find it. I lost it somewhere. I will find it one day. But anyways, we do have at least a good smattering of... We didn't have a modern figure of Jean Grey that didn't have, like, gimmick problems of the old Toy Biz days. Juggernaut, Colossus, and Beast were all new additions to the movies. So they kind of worked as, like, put these with your other, you know, figures. Like, if you were collecting all the X-Men movie figures from Toy Biz to Hasbro, you'd have a good selection of most of the characters, which is good. Not specific to each movie, but you would have at least characters. And I think there is some benefit to that. That being said, what are we missing from X3? Top level stuff, Wolverine in his X3 suit, Storm, Magneto, Rogue, Iceman, Pyro, Angel, and Kitty Pryde. There's a bunch of other random mutants too, but let's not worry about those. But this overall, I think, you know, in terms of Hasbro's Marvel Legends, this has the most representation out of any of the movies. And that's a little insane, considering the movie's reputation. So X-Men Origins Wolverine is definitely not a loved movie. A lot of people reject this. I don't even think it's canon because of a lot of reasons. But this was sort of like, let's expand on the origins of Wolverine. And how many figures do we get? Yeah, it's just tank top Wolverine. You can use either the adamantium claws or the bone claws, but, you know, mostly the adamantium claws tank top. It's the Hugh Jackman Wolverine look. It's the look for this movie. There is no Victor Creed / Sabretooth. There is no Gambit, Deadpool, or any of the other mutants in the movie. nor would I expect them to. Because at the time this movie came out, it was during the era where Hasbro wasn't doing 6-inch figures as their standards, but 3 3/4 inch, and they did a whole line of X-Men Origins Wolverine figures for that. They did a ton of toys for it. So while they're not in Marvel Legends scale, there is toys of those versions of the characters, at least for some of them. So there is figures for them. There's just not, 6-inch scale, modern style figures that would go in a current Marvel Legends collection. X-Men First Class is actually one of my favorite of these movies. It's got its issues just like all the other Fox X-Men movies, but I actually like this one quite a bit. A lot of character potential here, a lot of Magneto stuff, Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club. You also got, the whole first generation of X-Men with, Mystique and Beast and Havoc and Charles, and we got absolutely nothing. This movie came out in 2011, and I don't know if the reason it didn't get a toy line was because we know that there was a period of time where Disney basically forbade anybody from making X-Men merchandise because they were trying to launch the MCU and they didn't want, Fox X-Men competing or whatever. Same with Fantastic Four. I call it the FX embargo. But basically, a lot of the reason why you didn't see X-Men stuff between like 2015-ish to when Disney bought Fox was because they put a kibosh on it. They're like, no, we don't want any merchandise of the X-Men. They even reduced their role in the comics. Same with the Fantastic Four, which I thought was stupid because it's like, why would you not want to make money? But corporate politics is corporate politics. That being said, as far as I know, X-Men First Class came before then. Now, the only thing I could think of is why there's 0 toys, and I do mean 0. Like, there's not even like a 3 3/4 inch line or a basic figure line based on this movie, as I wonder if the rating was up for contention. I know this movie originally started as X-Men Origins Magneto before becoming X-Men First Class, and I also wonder with some of the more mature themes of the movie if it maybe was intending an R rating originally, and Hasbro didn't want to make a toy line for an R-rated movie, because that's pretty much how things don't sell. Also, the X-Men Origins Wolverine line and the Wolverine the X-Men lines didn't sell well either, so there's no toys. There just straight up is no toys based on this movie, which is a bummer, because I really like this one, and I would buy figures from it. Next up, we have the Wolverine, which is my favorite of the Fox X-Men movies, period. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I explained it on a live stream once, and people agreed with me, so I'll take it. The Wolverine was originally rated R, so there is a reason I probably didn't have a toy line, but, it's a Wolverine movie. How many figures do we got? Yeah, it's just Wolverine. We could have gotten, Silver Samurai, some of the other supporting cast. The movie is Wolverine Goes to Japan. There's a lot of toy options in that. It's fun. But the thing is that the version I put here is the Bone Claws version, because Logan wasn't really wearing the tank top and jeans look. I mean, he actually technically wasn't even wearing the jeans. We're getting technical. It was like different pants. But anyways, he wasn't wearing the tank top when he had adamantium claws in the movie. It was when he got the bone claws that he was wearing the tank top again. So this is, it's kind of like, this is specifically the X-Men 20th Anniversary line version, the Amazon exclusive, because the current repack version only includes the adamantium claws. The repack doesn't include the bone claws. So this only works with the first release of this figure. But yeah, that's pretty much it, which is, again, a bummer. I would buy figures, but I think that, the more we get into it, are they going to make figures based on every movie? No, but it is kind of weird. The further we go, the closer to present day, the less figures we have. X-Men Days of Future Past, my second favorite X-Men movie. This is a semi-crossover between the younger cast of the newer films that was introduced in First Class, as well as the original X-Men lineup, which means great time for toys. Well, Hasbro Marvel Legends was just getting back on its feet after being away for a few years, so I can understand why there wasn't any figures for it. There wasn't a basic line either, probably due to the X embargo, so the only figure from this movie we have is this Magneto. And I gotta say, I don't even like this Magneto. This was in the 2-pack with Charles Xavier. This is the one that came with the Ian McKellen heads, but this is the actual accurate costume to what Michael Fassbender wore as Magneto. And he wore this suit so well, so why does this figure suck so bad? Minor complaint time, but basically he's sort of disproportionate. His neck is like way too long, his shoulders sit too low because of it, his legs seem super short, and if you swap over to his unmasked head, it looks like it's floating because it's so high up. What the heck? For Marvel Legends, who, for all their faults, do pretty good figures, all things considered, for their price, this is really, really weak. For some reason, Magneto's just a figure they can't quite get 100% right. I also don't like this gritting teeth expression because it makes him look older than he is. And this, you know, I like this unmasked head, but it looks like it's floating. But yeah, that's all we got for Days of Future Past, which is kind of sad. I do wish that the Charles Xavier that came in this 2-pack came with a McAvoy with hair look, so we could have that. So at least we'd have 2 things. Or if, you know, Ian McKellen had worn the same Magneto suit, maybe we could have actually used the Ian McKellen heads properly here. But you just have to cheat it, because that's what we get. It was nice to get all those heads in one package, but the costumes are not necessarily universal for Magneto the way they were for Charles. All right, Deadpool, the movie that sort of redeemed the Fox X-Men movies for a lot of people, as it was like, oh, it's finally something comics accurate, which is subjective, depending on how you like your Deadpool. But Deadpool, great movie, a lot of doors broken down. It did not have like a toy line because it was an R-rated film from the jump, but it did get a Marvel Legend, and I did mean a Marvel Legend. This Deadpool here is only the Deadpool 1 version if you use these hands that don't have the painted backs on them. I didn't feel like swapping this out because I'm trying to make this video, but like, yeah, if you have the non-silver painted back hands, it's the Deadpool 1 version. If you have the silver backed hands, it's the Deadpool 2 version. And so that also means we don't have anybody else from this movie, because while we have a Negasonic Teenage Warhead, that's the Deadpool 2 version of her. And we also don't have a Colossus, and we also don't have any of the villains in the movie, but at least we have a Deadpool. X-Men Apocalypse, the next of the prequel trilogy, I guess, if we're calling it that. It's a different timeline at this point. But the X-Men Apocalypse film, lots of character introductions, younger versions of iconic characters. X-Embargo was in place, so we didn't get any toys for it. The Anniversary line gave us, however, bald James McAvoy in a chair that he didn't actually use while looking bald. This chair would have fit him if he had long hair from a Days of Future Past era, but he had the fancy Professor X chair by this point. And I can also tell that this Professor X is supposed to be the James McAvoy version, because they gave him this hand that is specifically like the thing that James McAvoy did, more so than the Patrick Stewart thing, which was kind of more of an extended finger. The curled finger was more of a McAvoyism. And yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes between the two bald dudes which is which, but this is the James McAvoy head. Since he lost his hair in X-Men Apocalypse, it fits that. It doesn't technically work for other versions. Again, the chair is wrong. I would have liked, I really wish he had a third head that was the long-haired James McAvoy, so at least he could be X-Men First Class, because Business Suit Charles wasn't going to fit Days of Future Past. I'm going on way too long about this, but yeah, this is the only figure from X-Men Apocalypse we have, and again, not fully accurate. All right, Logan, the iconic, best, regarded as the best movie. I think it's the best movie, it's just not a favorite. It's depressing as heck. The supposed final appearance of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, which wasn't true. Also the final supposed appearance of Patrick Stewart as Professor X, which also wasn't true. Yeah, look, when the MCU comes calling, you pick up the phone. So anyways, Logan, well-regarded movie. How many figures do we get? Okay, we actually got more than this. This is the chair. This is the reason why this chair was the one packed in with Professor X as opposed to the fancy X-Men chair, because they made a 2-pack of Logan and Professor X for San Diego Comic-Con 2020, which ended up becoming like some Hasbro Pulse exclusive because there wasn't a San Diego Comic-Con 2020, but it is a 2-pack of the 2 characters based on the movie, which is great. I'm glad the movie got mostly represented. There is still no X-23, none of the villains, and yeah, you know, on and on and on and on. But the thing is, at least we got some representation of this movie that was so well regarded by the fandom. So I think that's pretty cool. Again, I didn't get it because I find this movie incredibly depressing, but it exists. So Deadpool 2 released in 2018. You know, it had Cable, it had Deadpool, it had Domino, it had many other characters in it. How many figures do we get? Hey, you know what? That's pretty good. Deadpool 2 fared pretty well. I think because it was 2018, so when these figures were being developed for the 2020 release, this movie was like, it had come out, but it was still pretty current. So we got Deadpool and Negasonic Teenage Warhead in a 2-pack, and then we also got Domino and Cable as single figures. And what's really cool here is that it got most of the main cast. It got the main 3, you know, so at least the main 3 that were used for advertising, those 3 are represented. We did get one of the X-Men in the form of Negasonic Teenage Warhead. There is, however, still no Colossus for the Deadpool movies, which is a real bummer. We're also missing Yukio, Negasonic's girlfriend, because those 2 are a great pair, and we should have her as well. And then, of course, we're missing villain characters like the Juggernaut. But in terms of the main hero cast, it did pretty good. I would also say we're missing X-Force, but let's just leave it at that. The X-Force are missing some things too. But in terms of this movie, it got 4 figures, which is more than we can say for a lot of these. So, Dark Phoenix, the last of the X-Men movies from Fox. How many figures did it get when it was released during X-embargo after Disney Fox purchase, but before the embargo was lifted? It got nothing. And I don't think anybody's clamoring for it because the movie's not well received. You can technically say Bald Charles counts because we've been using him despite his chair inaccuracy this whole time. I didn't feel like skimming through Dark Phoenix to see if Professor X wore a blue suit in it, but that's the closest we're getting to anything from Dark Phoenix. And what about the last release in the Fox X-Men universe, the New Mutants? Yeah, you guessed it, nothing at all. And that's fine, because I don't like that movie for multiple reasons. So before you is every unique character made in Hasbro Marvel Legends based on the Fox movies. I say that because the only ones I don't have are variations of Wolverine and Professor X. This is it. This is pretty much the whole lineup. It is kind of weird how little the movies have been represented considering their legacy and considering they got an entire anniversary line to themselves that basically just gave us stuff from, like, you know, technically they were just like, let's just do couple things from X1, X2, and then mostly Deadpool, but, you know, I get it. I get the business behind it. It's just kind of strange. There's characters like Nicholas Holt's Beast, who was in several movies and never had a figure. Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique, never had a figure. It's just kind of interesting to see where the gaps are, and I thought this was an interesting recap. Now, will Deadpool and Wolverine be a huge success that spurs nostalgia for the Fox X-Men and we start getting more figures based on these movies? Maybe. Let's see. It will only be time as tell, but it may also be time to just say, this era is over and it's time to move on to whatever the X-Men are doing next. We'll have to see what happens, but I thought it was an interesting video to recap this, to talk about this. I don't see many people talking about how little these figures exist for these movies. I still think it's kind of crazy we didn't at least get Jean Grey, Storm, and Cyclops for the line to kind of round out the main four from the original films, but hey, that's just how things work out. So that does it for this video. If you enjoyed this type of video, please let me know in the comments. Also hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Help support the channel a whole lot. If you want to come discuss more of this kind of stuff, come join our Discord server in the link below. You can also check out our live streams on this YouTube channel every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, you can become a channel member and have perks like early access to videos, member-exclusive live streams, and special shout-outs. Let's do some special shout-outs right now. Special shout-out to all our channel members, including our Captain Tiers, Spin-54, Super Shaddix Boom, Toma K, Master Ben 95, Suavecito 14, Muhammad Faiz Daniel, SSJ4 Jason, Scrub Lord Gaming, and Psycho O's. Thank you everybody for your continued support of this channel and their future endeavors. You can also find me across social media if you wish at Soundout12. You can find my awesome graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643. And you can also find Hero Club at hero-club.com for entertainment news and more. And so until next time, this is Soundout saying, to me, my X-Men that haven't finished an entire team for a single movie.